Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is a weekly program designed to answer all your questions, including the ones you didn't even know you had, and to clarify the endless debates around the wonderful and fascinating world of sexuality. Join us for real talk about sex from two experts in the field. Richard and Larry Siegel have over 50 years of experience as sex therapists, educators, counselors, and researchers. The Siegel Brothers are recognized around the world as trainers of medical and mental health professionals.
Hello and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. I'm Dr. Ricky Siegel, a certified sex therapist and supervisor.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And my super awesome big brother.
Thank you. It's my
Cheers
favorite
to
role.
you.
Cheers, my brother. And cheers to you all for tuning in and joining us. Our traditional sake toast.
That's delightful.
You like that? I'm
You're
glad.
at it again. What is this we're enjoying this week?
This is actually a couple of different flavors. I infused this with some mandarin orange.
Beautiful.
So it's got that little undercurrent. There's a little pear, there's a little apple,
Beautiful.
there's a little
Beautiful.
orange.
Anybody watching doesn't know anything about sake, you don't know what you're missing. But this is our weekly opportunity for sex talk, and that's what we do. We are sexologists, sexuality educators, counselors, sex therapists, researchers. We've worn all of those hats over
Yes, indeed. 30 plus years.
a long and very rewarding career. It's not a bad gig if you can get it. It's pretty awesome talking about sex.
Yeah, definitely worth things to talk about
And
all
it's
day.
important, and there's
It
not
is.
enough of it.
It is.
There
And
should be more talking about sex
Indeed.
than having bad, exploitive or not present sex or sex with consequences you know what I'm trying to say.
yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be so negative for so many
Yeah.
people. This is one of the most positive parts of our life,
Right.
and we should be celebrating this. We should be enjoying this.
Seems
So-
the most sex talk people do is when they're telling dirty jokes,
Yeah.
right? Or bragging.
Or right, exactly, or you
Yeah.
know, something. So we appreciate you join us when we premiere every Friday night, and you know, as you like to say, every night should be sex talk. So hopefully you're making this a part of your relationships, a part of your interactions. If you're parents, you need to be talking to your kids about this stuff. If you are a human being, you need to be thinking about this stuff. It's just who and what we are. It really is. That's kind of the irony. The core to our humanity is something that we seem to work so hard to separate from.
Yeah.
Right? So again, let's stop this. Let's
Right.
bring this stuff together.
And this is our Valentine's Day show.
Yes, indeed.
Ooh.
Yes, indeed.
We should drink a
We'll drink a toast to that.
a sarcastic toast to Valentine's Day, because
Right.
it ain't our favorite thing.
That's right. That's right. We're a little cynical about this, although
We're
I am
happy.
of two minds.
We're never down on any chance to celebrate love and romance and opportunity for couples to connect. So first we'll toast to all the loving couples, everyone out there who's lucky enough to be in a relationship.
Yes.
Treat your partner well and enjoy an extra romantic weekend.
Indeed.
But
But don't use this one day that you buy flowers or you buy a card and think this gives you a pass to ignore or take for granted your partner for the other 364 days.
yeah.
Right?
And-
That's the cynical part.
Yeah, and at the risk of sounding like a total Valentine's Grinch, this is a Hallmark card holiday that serves to guilt people into spending ridiculous amounts of money they can't afford because there's some expectation that because it's Valentine's Day, you
Right.
got to buy a $6,000 tennis bracelet or go on a cruise.
Exactly.
Have a little bit of Valentine's Day every day.
Yeah.
Remember, cherish your beloved or beloveds, and don't make such a big deal out of it once a year, right?
Right.
Because then it gets into like guys expecting head on their birthday.
Well,
right?
sure.
It's
Sure.
why is this night different than all other nights? Or I'm borrowing from another holiday.
Exactly. You know, and then you also want to throw into that, you know, again, use this as an opportunity, you know, even if it is that, you know, that one day a year for you. focus on your partner. Remember why you're together. And please do not make the focus of all of this buying things, material things.
Right.
Use this as an opportunity to be together. Maybe you can use this as a time to talk about things in your relationship that you haven't talked about before. What a great way to celebrate Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. And I really try and go out of my way not to use the word work, right? Because we all get a little turn off when we hear that, oh, well, relationships take work. And I was just saying, I got like maybe the greatest job ever, but I'd still rather not be working. I'd still rather be on vacation.
Sure.
So I don't say work, but intention. And of course, no better excuse than a holiday, and made up as it may be, like Valentine's Day, to be intentional and spend time really thinking about your relationship. And that's really going to be our theme and a good segue to introduce our guest. Who is
really
returning.
happy.
We're very happy to have her back. Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh was with us last month, and she promised to be so kind as to come back specifically for tonight to talk about Valentine's weekend. And as we talked about on her first visit, we will expound on that tonight, expand and expound. There are assessments. Dr. Nasserzadeh is on a mission to democratize therapy, and last time we talked about her brilliant, I've been yakking about it in every supervision group ever since then, her relationship panoramic, which we had a link for.
Put the contact information at the end.
Probably put that up again tonight, and we'll also be talking about some more of her work.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, especially for Valentine's Day, she has this really, really wonderful article, and I want to say this to her directly as well. But it's not very often that I am reading something that makes me go, wow. And her stuff really does. She talks about this emergent model of love. And I don't want to say too much about it because it's really literally turns our typical notion of what love is on its head.
Awesome.
All right. So without any more ado, we would like to bring you our interview with Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh.
So we are back as promised, and absolutely delighted to welcome back returning guest, Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh, from
Delighted to be here.
London by way of New York and Northern California, and now Beverly Hills.
Yes, indeed. So great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming back.
Sure. My pleasure.
Really, really excited and just can't wait to start talking to you about again, this part of the work that you're doing, especially for Valentine's Day. As I had said before, this, you managed to turn this sense or this idea that we have of love completely upside down, completely on its head. And it's so important, because as you point out, the way people think of love and the way we kind of act a lot of that stuff out, it's so often a cause of pain instead of pleasure. And I think what you're doing is really kind of reprogramming that. So, I'm so glad to have you back to talk about your work in what you're calling emergent love. All right. So why don't we start with just sort of a basic idea of what is the typical conception of love? How is it that we think of love, and why is it problematic?
Sure. Well, we can go through the history or literature or sociology or anthropology or psychology of love, right? So for the purpose of tonight, hopefully we are going to turn love upside down. And I was actually thinking of, I'm writing this book about the concept, and then they asked me the name, and I'm like, you know what? Emergent love, an antidote to love confusion. Because
nice.
I'm sure you guys see that as well, that, couples come and say that, well, the butterflies are not there. So that's the one that I hear a lot, rekindling desire, rekindling whatever. I'm like, no, I literally give my couples this rope and I say, look, the moment you enter my office, cut this, Whatever you knew is over. We are opening up a new chapter with new rules, with new everything, because we can't really linger. And as our good colleague Esther Perel said, many of us marry several times throughout our lifetime now because we live longer, and some of us choose the same person to marry. So I like that mentality, because I feel like, it gives you that freedom, that whatever that was, some of those wounds we can't take care of. They're infected, they look ugly, they're terrible, that we created for each other. So it would be really nice to walk away from them. So that is that mentality, that whoever that is listening to this, I really want people to know that I truly, truly believe, otherwise I wouldn't have dedicated my life to it, that everybody deserves to be in the loving relationship that they desire. And love is all we need. But what is love? That's the whole thing, right?
Right.
Love is not
If I can just for say you just said a very powerful statement, especially in context to what you're talking about, right? That idea that love is all you need.
And you got a Beatles quote in there too.
That's right. Double points.
But the problem with that, if we take it as face value, so to speak, if you think of it that way, is if you think of this triangle that I have in the model, right? If you think of a triangle, we usually put love here. You fall in love, you love someone, that love is there, the rest will follow. That does not follow.
Right.
For many of my couples, has never been, has never done, will never. So that's why they're seeking help, right? So that's why I thought, how about we switch this around and actually put the triangle this way, so that based on the systems theory, right? So all the elements are in place and something will emerge. That would be the emergent love. So we don't quite have it at the beginning, right? And then that will happen at the end. Comparison that I make is that passionate love, that orange color love, is like that spark that Dr. Helen Fisher, as our good colleague, talks about it, right? That it only lasts on average 2 years. So that infatuation and being in love, just seeing the person and wanting everything about them, whatnot, right? But then my question becomes, why would you disable all of your good mental capacities and then go sign the most important contract of your life? Why would you do that to yourself? So that's why another reason that I'm thinking, if everything is in place, the foundational pieces are in place, then the emergent love comes, which is not that orange sharp color, but it's the rainbow. Then when you look at each other, it's mature, it's compassionate. You don't fight over really this and that anymore. When you look at each other, you look at each other through the lens of compassion.
And affection.
And affection
is the one thing most couples I see have just forgotten. That they had affectionate feeling towards one another, and life seems to get in the way.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And I think also what you're talking about with this sense of how we sort of trap the love and I think the giving up a lot of these mental capacities, it's how many people sort of, I think, shoot themselves in the foot by having this sort of distinction. We look at these two different levels. Well, I am in love with that person, as opposed to I love that person. And one of the takeaways I got from what you wrote about that is, you love somebody or you don't love them. This idea, I'm in love with them, I'm not. That is the most transient and in many ways very unhealthy aspect of all of that. And there's a section in what you had written in your article on this, and I just want to ask you, in terms of explanation, why is it kind of a negative? I'm even going to say, why are butterflies bad? When people talk about having those butterflies in our stomach, why is that not really a good thing? Why should we get away from that?
Well, actually, there's a very good book on that I recommend to everybody, Attached. The first author is Dr. Amir Levin. So it's very interesting because
Rachel Heller, I believe, right?
Yes, thank you. Rachel Hiller is the second author. So it's really interesting if people want to go deeper in that, because the more we know about neuroresonance, the more we realize that if I see a person and I get kind of overexcited, those butterflies, that is not going to go well in long-term relationships. I'm not saying that I'm against that, but it's really important if you know that there's another concept that I always say: if you have a polished gut, so to speak, you can trust it. But don't just go to the world and say that I trust my gut. I mean, show me your gut first. You know, if your gut is filled with those ideas of butterfly, and the person that when I see them I forget my name, oh my God, run the other way.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand that's a fight or flight response.
Yeah, they are triggering you. Clearly, they're triggering you. And in long-term partnership, you need home, feeling of home. And then on the other side of it, so that's one concept with that butterfly that is really important. But some people get really excited as we start dating somebody, getting to know them. If we have luxury to date somebody and it's not, like we are allowed to do that, so to speak. It's really important to get to know those butterflies and which part of it we can actually cultivate and move forward within the relationship. That is the part that we're talking about. I think that's why people talk about that rekindling without knowing what they're talking about, really. Yeah. And no offense to anybody out there, but it's really important. We have to pay attention to what language presents, right? So when we talk about rekindling, are we talking about that initial feeling that will never happen again, ever, because the novelty is gone, adrenaline rush, and that is. And then the other thing is, okay, how can we cultivate it? If many people get new sex toys, many people get to, so different things, different tools that they bring to their relationship. But then we know, again, based on neurobiology and neuroscience, that if you want to create novel experiences with each other, share that experience with each other, the more shared novel experiences that a couple has together, the longer they stay together.
Yeah. And, and I think that speaks to the idea, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I think that speaks to the notion that, I mean, love, a successful relationship, almost everything about it has to be intentional. You use that phrase, listening to your gut. I think you would appreciate this. It's one of my favorite lines from a movie. It's a movie called High Fidelity. And this was a line that John Cusack said, where he's talking about, again, why his relationships don't work. He said, I have been listening to my gut since I'm 14 years old, and I have come to the conclusion that my guts have shit for brains.
That's so perfect.
It really is. It really is. So it really does. I mean, I like that idea that it's that sharing purpose, that sharing intention, that conscious connection. This idea of it's just supposed to happen. I mean, to me, that's one of the most destructive aspects of the way we look at love.
But what I'd like to hear you talk about, Sara, is how often we see that flare out, that limerence, that honeymoon phase flares out. And especially nowadays, it seems people just get too bored too quick. Relationships get too domesticated and they lose the sexy very often, especially when kids are involved.
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, could you?
I'm going to demystify another thing. We talk about sexual chemistry. Sexual chemistry does not work in long-term relationships. Sexual harmony does.
I like that.
That's wonderful.
When I talk about cultivating those butterflies, when I talk about redirecting, see what is the actual butterfly that we can catch and keep for a long time, that's what I'm talking about. By the way, it's really important for people to know, now that we're talking about that emergent love, to know what are those pillars that lead to that, right? Sexual chemistry is not one of them. Physical attraction is. Because sexual chemistry, that sexual harmony could be made between two people, right? Or how people that people would like to get involved with. It's really important. The physical attraction, shared vision, it's extremely important, as you know, right? And it's really interesting. Sometimes I ask my couples to bring this, their wedding certificate, and then I switch it over, and I'm like, okay, so on this side, it's usually white on the back, right? In many countries, it is white. And then you look at the back. So what are these things with invisible lines here? Like, what are the expectations? What were the visions that you really didn't quite share with each other, articulate with each other, but you had in mind, right?
Nice.
So they are different, like financial attitude of two people. Very, very important. The way that they treat money, relate to money, identities they hold, their temperaments. One person is a morning person, one person is absolutely a night person. How are we going to make that work over a period of time? So there are so many thinking styles, and we talked about before. So there are different things that, because when we did the emergent love model, it was the qualitative sample. And then when we put it to test with a larger sample, we really solidified all of those main parameters that they are non-negotiable. I've had couples that I told them on the first consultation session, I'm like, for these reasons, I honestly think you're going to get separated in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, up to you. But here's what I'm offering you. When a person says, I want to have 6 kids, live in Paris, that's my lifeline, dream. The other person says, I want to buy a farm and I want to raise my own kettle. I mean, what do you tell them? But we love each other. I'm like, what kind of love are you talking about here?
Sounds like Green Acres.
Yeah.
Remember? There was a sitcom.
right.
There was a sitcom in the '60s about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a wealthy guy, and Zsa Zsa Gabor played the wife, and he moved out of the city and the Wall Street and bought a farm, and she was dragged along like Melania Trump, crying the whole time, wanting to be on Park Avenue.
So there's part of that intention, that part of that, and I think we've talked about this in the past as well, that and like you were even saying with that sort of marriage certificate on the back, that we go into our relationships, our long-term relationships, we make these promises for life, yet we never talk about what's going to happen. We never have agreements. We never have understandings. We have those assumptions and expectations, and that's it. And then we find out how many years later or however long later, we have never been on the same page.
And do you know why? Because we're either here or here. Here is, oh, you're so calculative. You have a list. So you're going to really measure me up to see if I fit your criteria. The other one, they show up on a date with a list that is taller than
Yeah.
And then I look at the list. I'm like, really, do you care about this, that the person doesn't smell like onion? Do you really care about this? Like what does matter? That's why I think, when we can have evidence-informed tools for people, they know what matters most, what is negotiable, what is non-negotiable. That goes a long way. That goes a long way. I think, just saying that, the type of love that we were raised with is not going to work, it is going to leave people with a sense of despair, I think. So now, hopefully, we have some explanation that, when you switch it around, here's what we have.
Right.
For years, I've been asking couples in the therapy room if they would ever go into business with someone who proposed that they just sign a blank contract and say, don't worry about it, we'll fill it in later. Would you sign it? And of course, nobody in their right mind would ever say yes.
Right.
But how many people go into a marriage contract? And just all the pre-printed stuff. And then the negotiate, there's no negotiating when you're, standing in front of a member of the clergy or a justice of the peace in front of all your friends and family. Nobody's like, oh, wait, what was that back part? No, we're going to scratch that an initial, and standing at the altar with their attorneys. Right. No, they just say I do, and they'll fill in the rules later. Or as you like to say, people often find out what the rules are by breaking them.
Exactly. When they found out, they broke them. I didn't know I was taking a test until I found out I failed. And again, that's how most relationships tend to play themselves out. And that's one of the things I really like also about your model. And even like you just were also sort of indicating, it's using this triangle, and it's a great, very simple image. And as you talked about, the way people look at their relationships typically is it's a what did you call it, a submergent model. And even just looking at it at first glance, it's really one of those whoa kind of things where just it hits you right away. Look at how love gets buried in all of those other things that we tend to pile on top of it and think that love is supposed to support it and hold it up.
So true. And love needs nurturing. Love is fragile. Love is not as strong as we think. It's really amazing that we put it in here and then we blame everything on love, that you don't love me anymore because you didn't make me tea with sugar. You should have known. I'm like, what does that have to do with love? So these are the things. The other thing you mentioned, submergent, it's really interesting, Larry, because so one of the things that I observed is that two people in kind of the majority of the population, there are two people usually, right? So they come together, they spend some time together. Sometimes they fight because why don't you pay attention? Why don't you spend time with other people than me? So those thing is gone, right? And then they come together. And then in the model, I actually have two circles. And then in one of them, and then the next step is two circles, some of them intertwined, right? Where there's the space here in between, right? And then I have one that both of them are so like submerged. That's the submergent, right? And then either they come to our offices because they're sexless, they want out. Most often people in this category, they have panic attack. They have they really don't know what to do with themselves. I mean, it's really, really difficult. And these are the couples that in my office, in love, they finish each other's sentences. I say, what is your hobby? They look at the partner. I'm like, I asked you. So these are the ones that really, they are assessment tools for us, right? As in the clinical setting. So that's that. And then we have to work hard to not to only do this, fill this gap for each person, make them kind of a concept of codependency, right? But then after that, when they figure this out, they usually look at each other. They either don't know each other, they don't know how to relate with each other. They have to, that's why that concept of new marriage or new relationship makes sense, right? And then 1 + 1 = 3.
Right.
Yes.
That's
That synergy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially when with the so-called empty nest syndrome, when kids grow up and go off to college, when the youngest one goes to college and there's the couple like, oh, hi, here we are again. We've had an 18 or 20-year distraction, and now they have, they're almost forced into a new love.
Yeah, even with retirement, even without kids, how many people go through the bulk of their life together, sort of waking up together, separating, 8 to 10 hours later, coming back and then spend the tail end of the evening together.
Right.
And now retirement, 24/7. And how many times a day you have no idea what to do with each other.
That's very true. And it's really interesting as we are discussing this, because this is going to be our Valentine's conversation. I also want to put forward some hope for people, because the first time I remember that publicly I announced the research results, a few years ago at Stanford. I was giving this talk. A lady stood up and was crying as clapping. And then she said, where have you been 20 years ago? You just shattered everything about me, about my life, but where have you been? And in that moment, I realized that, oh my God, so this is where this work matters. That we can preventative work. That's one. So hopefully we are offering with this conversation, with Emergent Love Model, some sort of hope for people. The other thing is on the back of it now we have relationship panoramic inventory. I hope it doesn't come across as kind of self-promoting.
No,
we
this
wanted,
is,
we wanted you to
we
talk
want
about
people to
this.
know about this.
I'm so
Yes.
jazzed about it. I want everybody to know about it.
Well, me too. I really hope that they can use it. And then based on that, all of these pillars, we worked into that questionnaire, right? So they take it, they know where they fit with each other and with the normative sample. So they know if they rank here, oh, it's okay, we're actually about average. So normalizing it rather than idealizing it. So that's 1, 2, right? And then on the back of it, it's also important for people to know that there's not one model of love. In Greek times, we can even, work up to like 8 models, 9, like, I think emergent love model will be the 9 model that is introduced to the world. The rest of them are hopeful. Why they're hopeful? There's sometimes couple come and say that I love you, I'm not in love with you, then separate ways, right? Or when I'm facilitating a divorce, a separation of some sort. And they are trying to be amicable, but really, but that's not the norm. I need to hate you to be able to move on, right? So depending on the style of ending, obviously, for people. But there's no need for that. If you have access to 8 types of love, 9 types of love, you're like, you know what? I don't have the ludus, I don't have the playful love with you anymore, but I have the compassionate love for you. I don't have this one, but I have 7 more. So it really helps. I think it's just bringing some hope to this poor love that is smashed under all of these, expectations.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
So
I
it's
really hope
poetic.
people get that. It is.
Yeah.
It's really, it is beautiful, and I just really love this model. So, to use yourself as your own segue, what are some things that you would sort of just generally, like, what they say, the elevator pitch kind of thing, some points that people can just sort of take in right now to kind of feed that hope, that hopefulness about love?
First of all, I truly believe everybody deserves, and I don't use that word lightly, people. I don't believe in entitlement. But when I say deserve, I believe it. Because I have clients who come to my office, I'm sure you saw that too. They're sobbing. Maybe I'm less off. Maybe I'm not a human. Maybe I don't deserve it. Yes, you do. You do deserve it. But it's just a matter of what is it that you're looking for. If we want to give people hope, I just want them to think about what is it that you're looking for. Because if you're not looking for the right thing, so to speak, then whatever that you get is not going to be satisfying. So that would be the first thing. The hope is, as a person who spent a lot of years of her life researching love, I know that is possible. I know that you can cultivate it and sustain it and enjoy it, and you deserve it. So that's one. Hopefully that is hopeful. The second one is now we have the tools. We have amazing literacy. We have great books out there. We have great research out there that, people can really read about, to kind of understand what sort of love they're talking about, and also come up with their own way of communicating that with each other, with people that they're dating, with their future people, with their children, so that we are all love literate. And then we could be fluent in the language of love. And I think we all can be.
So great.
That's great. It really is. And
Nice.
so much of it is, and again, what I take from so much of your stuff is, something that I've always believed in, that when you're starting a relationship, stop thinking about anybody else's relationship. Stop thinking about scripts and what's supposed to be. People are trying to hold themselves to what their love is supposed to be.
Yeah.
You get to write this story yourselves.
I don't know where I heard this, but it struck me that this idea that if you ask anyone on the street how often they think other people have sex, the most likely answer is 2 to 3 times a week. And if you ask them how often they're having sex, they'll say once every week or two. So everybody thinks everybody else is having more sex than they are, so they feel deficient when most people are probably having sex once a week or two, right? But I also want you to comment, before we introduced you at the top of the show, I indulged one of those cranky old man moments about Valentine's Day. And this, while it's always great to celebrate love and romance, this kind of Hallmark card created guilt trip to spend lots of money and all this expectations kind of dilutes the whole celebration, don't you think?
I think so. In my office in pre-COVID, I was going to like go off my chair about this. So I had cookies in my office, and then half of them darker color, half of them lighter color, for people who celebrated and didn't celebrate Valentine's Day. Because religiously, many people celebrate Valentine's Day, day of kindness, day of love, and gradually it became a phenomenon, worldwide, right? I think it is creating a lot of pressure on people to spend a lot of money, do really, what do you say in English? Bend backward, forward.
Bend over backwards. Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Like, since this morning, all of my clients, Sara, what should we do? Should I impress the person? Should I surprise the person? And it's really interesting. If this is a possibility for you to celebrate your relationship, celebrate yourself, relationship with yourself, with your body, with your spiritual being that you believe in, with anything. Again, think about different types of love, whichever that you want to celebrate. If it's your excuse, just celebrate it and just embrace yourself and all that. But I also have to say, it's easier said than done, because every morning when I wake up, I personally, that I'm like a workaholic, right? I am a workaholic, admitted workaholic. But every morning when I wake up, I look at my account, social media account, I'm like, oh my God, the whole world is running, I'm behind, right? If I think that and I'm teaching people not to do that, then go figure. But I have couples who get into fights because their house does not look like an Instagram picture. Honestly, I have couples who fight over that. Or every morning they wake up and they feel like, oh, I look so ugly in front of the mirror, because before they go to the bathroom to wash their face, first they check this and see all of these people with full makeup. Then the next second they find themselves without makeup, Julie Bully hair, in front of the mirror, and then they feel terrible.
Yeah.
So the same with love, all of these lovey-dovey pictures, and then you don't have one to produce. So it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it really is. And, I find it very ironic that, again, going back to this idea that you're creating this emergent, you're allowing it to happen. It is a process of it coming out. And I think maybe there's a little piece of that is sort of naturally present in arranged marriages. Because, I've always found it very interesting that, in places where we talk about marrying for love, it really doesn't work very well. Yet when we look at the arranged marriages where people come together on those agreed upon things, those things that are conscious, then that love does often emerge and it's much more successful. I think it's very ironic, but I think it does speak to what might even be sort of inherent in those relationships that is your model.
I think so too. But Larry, I have to say something. The first time that I was talking about this anecdotally with colleagues, one of the people at that table, if we were at the conference, told me, well, Sara, are you trying to introduce the idea of arranged marriage in our modern society? I thought about that, and then I realized that I often tell people that I arrange my own marriage, and I want you to do the same. So it's not like, yes, arranged marriages, by the way, let's clarify something. It's a spectrum. Somebody that, you're actually sold literally to somebody, or you are going to, have a couple of dates, or you are going to have, like certain things that we can, have a whole talk about that, right? So that is that, right? But also in arranged marriages, because they're mostly happening in collective cultures, you have a whole tribe to support you.
Yeah.
Our new tribe is social media. So if people who are posting a lot about their coupledom, they are kind of committing to their tribe that we are keeping the coupledom together. So the society is shifting, the pressure points are shifting, the support points, the motivations are shifting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
So
Oh boy, that's another conversation. That's something I would really love to explore further. Right. That'll have to be for another conversation, though, I'm afraid. Right. But yeah, definitely. It is all on a spectrum. Right. But no matter how we approach it, no matter how we are defining these relationships, I think, as Lenny Kravitz saying, let love rule. I think we need to let love emerge and really kind of create these relationships, these connections, especially these lifelong connections that allow that to grow and flourish, not think it's our starting point. Right? And I think sometimes, again, that's where I'm going to say it again, how you flip this whole idea on its head.
Yeah.
And it's so brilliant.
No, thank you. Ella Finkel actually talks about that like individualism and, how we are really struggling with thriving and then doing it together. How does that work? And then, so there are so many amazing scholars out there who are, writing about love and marriage. Stephanie Kuhn's book about history of marriage as why love became a part of it. So all of these really, Ellen Hatfield. So there's a lot written on the topic that we can really educate ourselves about.
Yes.
Really rescue our generations to come from this not very healthy idea of love.
Yeah, it really isn't. So
well, as always, I'm completely charmed. I can see the dopey grin on my face. It's always such a pleasure talking with you. We're so
Truly.
grateful to have you on Sex Talk again.
Yes,
and we hope it won't be the last time.
Yeah.
And
these conversations with you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
It's
I'm just
so great.
So looking forward to when we can travel again and be together at conferences and
that's the thing we miss the most.
I'm glad we have this technology. We can talk from opposite ends of the country without having to get on a plane.
Yes, indeed. So
thank
you
keep
so
doing
much.
The great work you're doing. We'll put up the links as soon as we roll the credits, so as folks know how they can find out all about this. They can read your article and learn all about the relationship panoramic. And of course, we wholeheartedly endorse it and encourage couples to check it out.
Yes, absolutely. And again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great Valentine's Day as well. Right? Oh, maybe that's a day you'll take a little bit of break from work.
Yeah.
Joy.
I know. Yeah, we get that. So again,
be well. Thank you.
Stay well.
Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh, our charming guest.
Yes.
Just so grateful.
My pleasure.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Sara.
Yes.
You are wonderful as always.
Yes.
We're so grateful to have the chance to talk to you.
And it's such an important piece of work, because the way people are thinking about love, the way people are used to thinking about love, it's really just terrible. It really is. It doesn't work. It's a lousy model.
It is.
Right? So this idea of literally turning this idea of love on its head, from seeing love as buried underneath all that stuff that we think love is supposed to be, turning it around to seeing how love is really the pinnacle. Right? And that's the place we want to be to. So, again, thank you for doing such amazing work. And I think it's liberating. And if people really do sort of follow through and reconceptualize what love is and what their expectations of love. And again, I love that whole idea that, having butterflies in your stomach, that whole thing, we're supposed to be in love, that's nonsense. And in fact, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Right? It is really not healthy. Right? So
And once again, we have this wonderful, there's lots of silver linings, this wonderful built-in excuse, blame COVID. Don't go out for Valentine's Day. Don't go to a restaurant. Don't go walking on the Ave. Don't go to a show. Stay home and have a romantic date. Right?
Be together.
Marriage and family therapists send folks out on date night. Sex therapists send folks to the bedroom.
Right, exactly.
On date
Stay
night,
in.
Right? Have your toast. Have your fancy meal. Have your, romance. Or even go have a staycation and go to a local Holiday Inn. And hotel sex is always hotter than home.
Sure, and sometimes just going out into the driveway and getting in the back seat of your car, like it used to be.
Honestly,
it doesn't take a whole lot to be creative,
especially during the pandemic.
Yep.
A lot of folks have been hiding from the kids.
That's right.
In the garage.
That's
in the
right.
back seat
That's
of the
exactly
car.
right. That's exactly right. So
one more toast to that.
Yeah.
And to Dr. Sara and all the wonderful work she's doing,
Yes,
democratizing therapy for the masses.
It's so great.
So we will bid you a good day, good night, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. And thank you again for joining us. We'd be so grateful for subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you came to us through Facebook, likes and shares, comments on both.
Comment, especially
go
on
very
YouTube.
Far for us.
Yep, and again, help keep all of this moving. Help keep this stuff moving forward. We really appreciate it. We can't do it without you. So thank you all for your continued support and for staying with us.
We will see you next Friday and every Friday at 7 p.m. East Coast U.S. time on Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Stay well, everybody.
Thanks for watching Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us each week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing world of sex and sexuality.